Max Damage here with my first deck video for Lost Caverns of Ixalan Standard. We're here today with Boros Aggro, a low-to-the-ground, lightning-fast creature deck based on humans. Boros is back in Standard, and I'm here to walk you through the deck and show off some Mythic gameplay. So let's get right into it. Boros Aggro is a hyper-aggro humans-based list with an average cost of 2.4 and just 22 lands. Yes, I know MTGA Assistant is recommending 23 to me right now, but we're living on the edge and keeping the deck tight at 22. That being said, the deck curves out at turn 3 with Knight Errant of Eos, often having a reduced cost. Speaking of the Knight Errant, this deck's strategy is to go wide and then boost the whole board with Imidane's Recruiter once you've replenished yourself and cast some of those 1 and 2 drop humans from your Knight Errant play. So let's go ahead and go through the deck now from the bottom to the top and take a look at the whole curve. We start with Hopeful Initiate, a full play set of this. This is really good as enchantment and artifact removal in addition to something that grows with training. Lunarch Veteran, 2 copies of, because the life gain that we get from this, also the fact that it's a 1-drop human, can sort of offset the damage that we take from decks like Mono Red, which seek to really outdo us by turn 3 or turn 4. Recruitment Officer, a full play set of this card. In the late game, it's able to fetch other cards that we might need once we've stalled. And then the 2-drop slot, we start with Coppercoat Vanguard, +1/+0, ward 1 to all other humans, which really adds to your board state's power when you're going wide with some of the other cards in the deck. We've also got 2 copies of Get Lost. This is a new card from Lost Caverns of Ixalan, a new piece of removal, overtaking Destroy Evil in a lot of cases, but we'll talk about later at the end of the video how I feel about the balance between this and Destroy Evil. It is very useful, especially as a tempo piece. Good in this deck because this deck is really trying to go fast, and so your opponent hopefully doesn't have time to use the map tokens. 2 copies of Inti, Senescal of the Sun. This card is amazing for just giving you a quick boost right as it lands, right whenever you attack, so it doesn't have to attack. It can something else can attack to trigger. You get to put a 1/1 counter on target attacking creature, gains trample until the end of the turn, which is good in the early game as well. And then whenever you discard 1 or more cards, you get to exile the top of your library, and you can play that card until your next end step. So really creating some good card advantage as well. 2 copies of. 4 copies of Resolute Reinforcements. This is one of our pieces that we use to really go wide. 1 copy of Intrepid Adversary, great as a 4-drop, boosting your whole board, and also a strong lifelink creature. We have 1 copy of Kellen, Daring Traveler. This card allows you to fetch from the top whenever you attack with them. Creature card, mana value 3 or less, you can put it into your hand. Otherwise, you can put it in your graveyard. 3 copies of Adeline, because Adeline is one of the strongest 3-drops in Mono White in humans. So 3 copies of. 2 copies of the new Anim Pakal. Anim Pakal allowing you to attack and just go wide even further with the gnomes that you get from the 1/1 counters that the creature grows with as you attack each turn. So 2 copies of that. 4 copies of Imidane's Recruiter, which on the flip side, on the adventure side, you do have a 5-cost spell that you're hardly ever going to cast, but sometimes you do. Sometimes this deck does stall and you get to create 2/2/2 White Knights. But then also the 3-drop side, Imidane's Recruiter is a human knight 2/2 that gives everything +1/+0 and haste. So really the win con of the deck, if I'm being honest. 4 copies of Knight Errant of Eos. We were just talking about this card, and you'll notice 4 copies because this really allows you to replenish your hand once you've exhausted it, trying to attack your opponent. 1 copy of Virtue of Loyalty. We'll see how I feel about this card later on. We'll talk at the end of the video about adjustments that I would make. But for now, this card serves its purpose, and if you can cast on the 5-drop side, once things have stalled or you're in a Mexican standoff situation with the opponent, then you can really start to overtake them over time if they don't draw what they need. You'll notice, here's the mana base. You'll notice lots of white basics and red only on the dual lands. 1 Plaza of Heroes for the legendary creatures that we just talked about that are in the deck, often targeted. So 1 Plaza of Heroes tends to help in the late game, mid game. Cavern of Souls, we've got 4 copies of because we do get to take advantage of the fact that it is a human kindred deck. And then, of course, that totally makes Make disappear an irrelevant card against you. So for those decks that use it, Cavern of Souls has been the bane of that recently. 2 copies of a Ganjo, trying to kill, bigger things. Sometimes you have to 2-for-1 yourself. Take out one of your own creatures, block something, and then the Ganjo comes up and kills the Sheldred or whatever it is that you're dealing with. So sideboard, if we take a look at it, really aims at control decks, the even bigger Golgari deck list with creatures that are bigger than what you have. We've also got 3 copies of Peacekeeper here to tempo against Domain and take away Sunfalls, which, big bane of the deck, and combo pieces like, well, really self combos Atraxa. Fealty will get you by if Sheldred or Atraxa present themselves. That's really one of the best options rather than killing them outright, but being able to steal them for a turn can usually win you the game. And then against Sheldred, of course, we have Witchstalker Frenzies, which are very good against the pieces that the creature decks like to use against hyper aggro as roadblocks. So that's the deck. Now let's jump into some gameplay from this past week of Mythic action and see how the deck does. Alright, starting hand. Notice that I kept 4 lands. That's going to be something that happens quite a bit, actually. However, if it tends to be that if you're on the play, keeping more lands than necessary tends to be more okay than not. But as a general rule, but with this deck, you don't want to keep that many lands. But we did get lucky here. We'll see. All right, we start with the Hopeful Initiate play. All right, draw another land. Very unlucky. We do Cavern of Souls for humans. NT coming down, hopefully. They're unable to counter it, so it does come down. Let's see what our opponent does here. They don't have the Go for the Throat. Right there, we did get lucky. We do get to discard a land, which is cool. Boost the Initiate. Our opponent takes the 2. Alright, Virtue of Loyalty for the token. And then the Deep Cavern Bat. That is a new card to watch out for. They will take away one of your pieces. If you don't have the removal, it's a removal check. If you don't have the removal, then that becomes a problem because they've just gained an advantage. 3/3 with discarding a land. We get Immodane's Recruiter off the top with the Exile. We get to play it. Very suboptimal play right there. We don't get the boost from the Recruiter for the combat phase. Nonetheless, that was the only way we were going to be able to play it. And I'm thinking right here, okay, Interpret Adversary for 4. We get to boost the whole field. Maybe that'll help. Alright, we're down to 13. There's Adversary. We boost everything. Go in and attack. Training goes off. I do decide to discard the Recruitment Officer here to boost. We want to make sure that everything's able to kill Rafine. Alright, things are looking good. They drop a Virtue of Loyalty. That's bad. Especially against me with no resources in hand. Alright, so we attack all here. I discard the Adeline, boost things even further, and they give up. So we get game 1. Sideboard options here. Let's see what we do here. Frenzy. Get Lost. We drop the Lunark Veterans. Okay. Denick, their opening play. Alright, we follow their wedding announcement play with Resolute Reinforcements. For all, we have 3 Recruitment Officer, and we use all of our creatures tapped for, or everything except for one of the Resolute Reinforcements. For Knight Errant. They come down with the Schooner on their side, destroy evil, our Knight Errant. Life gain, oh, that's such a tough thing to deal with. Both with this deck and Mono Red, Life gain is really the bane of both decks. But we go super wide here with the double copper coat play. Training goes off. We do a ton of damage. They're down to 10. Alright, they use 3 mana to strike one of our vanguards. Bring down a mastermind. Writing announcement gives them a boost. Intimidating recruiter in hand. I think that's the play, right? Yep. These have been some ideal plays, ideal curve outs so far. This first set is definitely what the deck is supposed to do. Alright, what happens here? Opponent roping us. Attack with everything. Max damage, we get the set. So, like I just said, that was the ideal set. That's where we want to be. Is exactly what happened right there. Next game is against Exist to Cease. Alright. 4 land hand to begin with. Copper Co is what we start out with. They start out with Tough Cookie. I believe the deck we're playing against is the Explorer Simic Artifacts deck in this match. So this is a good test. Ixalan comes down. We're at 16, we're at 13. So far they have more power on the board. Yep, that's exactly the deck. Ash Lizzle's Simic Artifacts. And they're getting an ideal curve out here. Cavern of Souls. What did I do? Knight Errant here? Yeah. Get a big body, get a couple more bodies. Total this turn. Good turn. Good turn. We get a Hopeful Initiate. We get a 5/4 body as well. Alright, Schooner comes out. They've got pretty good board state. Really decent board state here. Schooner allows for exploration. They've got the Cauldron out. Right, so we lose both of those creatures. They lose both of theirs. Looking pretty even right here. They've got more power on the board, of course. So, I'd play Kellen and Adeline. On attack. Not yet. See what they do. Alright, so they pass. Go for the 2/2 side here? No, we go all out. Line's a 7/4. All out except the Copper Co Vanguard. They have some tough choices to make here. Alright. Cauldron goes back to being an artifact. The Ginger comes down for them. We just go all in on Intrepid Adversary here. And that's game 1. Alright. See what we do here. Get Lost. We drop Get Lost for a couple of copies of Frenzy. The logic is we don't want to give them any more ways to explore. Recruitment Officer play goes in for 2. We've got Schooner out already. Sentinel. That Sentinel is such a beast of a card. Very good card. Making some headway right now in even an Explorer, Pioneer. NT. We've got a pretty stacked board state already. We're going to use that for Knight Errant. Name Pakal and Adeline. So look how stacked we are already by turn 3. This is another ideal curve for us. Alright, so they have access to the Sentinel and the Schooner. They can explore and explore. Alligators comes down for them. 4/5 with Vigilance is nothing to scoff at. We don't block, we take it. We're up to 4 mana. Right here, we use it for Coppercoat Vanguard and Ixalan. And attack all. Gotta get there. What do we discard? The Recruitment Officer? What do we do here? We discard the Recruitment Officer. No, we don't discard, because we want the 1/3 play next turn. I think that's why. 16/8. Checking out the map tokens. Didn't know how useful they would be in standard when we were in early access, but it turns out pretty useful. Get Lost is an odd card. You know, it's good removal, good solid removal for white. But you know, is it better than Faithful Absence? It's tough to say. Depends on what deck. It's contextual. Depends on what decks you're playing against. Adeline comes down. That's our boy say even more. Recruitment Officer. And do we attack here? I think we do. We hold. White should have attacked right there. What the end result is, they add to their board state, gain some life. They're up to 10. Surge Engine is definitely a useful card. One you definitely want to be using the explore token, the map tokens on to explore. More mana, and the Impalcall comes down, and this time we do attack with everything. Adeline gets beefy. So that's a must block. Schooner comes out. Surge Engine to block Adeline. Sentinel blocking Knight Errant. Alright, so we get him down to 1, and then we finish off by playing a Recruitment Officer. Stack board state, I think we got it. Tell us that they're tired. Simic Cauldron, or Cauldron comes down for them. The deck is kind of Simic Cauldron, but it's more Simic artifacts. They attack. Checking us to make sure that we know how to block and do math. Go down to 4. That should do it. Max damage. Alright, so you saw in those first 2 sets we had ideal curve outs. We got just a slight bit lucky, but the way we went wide and then had plenty of ways to punish our opponent beyond that, even when they built up a board state of sorts, either by going wider than them and then boosting everything, or doing our math and beating them in ideal block or attack situations. So that's how that works out for us. All right, going to the next match. Ideal hand, 3-land hand, looking good. Nice curve out. Start with Recruitment Officer. Go Vanguard next. We do 3 damage right off the rip. Ooh, Virtue persisted. Coppercoat Vanguard. Adeline comes in. You know, it really looks like we're doing well. Infernal Grasping our Adeline, so just the 1-for-1 removal. Playing against Golgari. Go even wider with Recruitment Officer. We still have a Coppercoat out there. We get game 1. Looking good, looking good. Virtue of Loyalty, I think we subbed that out, yeah. For 2 copies of Twisted Fealty. It looks like we're playing against Golgari, so I'm thinking, you know, we're going to steal their Glisses, steal their Sheldreds. We drop the Intrepid Adversary. Do you think that's, you know, the 4-drop play? Give back 1 Adeline, Cavern of Souls for humans. Of course, been so useful, that card. Tenacious Underdog is their first play. Coppercoat Vanguard is ours. Red Knight, starting to give them a little card advantage here. Adeline comes down. Decide not to attack. Children comes down for them. already doing damage. How the heck are we going to remove Shieldred? Big roadblock. We don't draw a Twisted Fealty, you know, it's kind of toast here. Alright, Recruiter on the 2/2/2 side to keep our board stayed up. Nice swing into that. Should have killed the Sheldred here. I did not. I was thinking, I don't know what I was thinking exactly. We could still somehow do enough damage to win. Probably not. At 23, that was a tall ask. So we kind of punt the game right here. Should have killed the Sheldred. They did come down with two Graveyard Trespassers, so would have made things really difficult even had we killed Sheldred. Unless it would have given us a chance. We're in top deck mode. Sheldred doesn't mind attacking into 2/2/2s. And then, yeah, who cares if we kill the Tenacious Underdog? Oh, they back up. Okay. They attack here? I don't think they... Oh, they do. Okay. I mean, I would. Down to 4. Red Knight comes down. Graveyard Trespasser comes down. Down to 3. We're down to 1. Recruitment Officer. Nothing helps. And so, right there, you can see why we gave up. Alright, sideboard. Thinking Frenzy, right? We bring in Frenzy. If we don't, I'm going to be surprised. If I don't, it's probably because I'm trying to be aggressive. Nope, we bring in all copies of Frenzy. We ditch Get Lost. Veteran. Alright. Get rid of them. Get rid of the recruit. Adeline comes down. Gets destroyed. Result Reinforcements comes down. Dread Knight, big value engine for them. I mean, Dread Knight and T-Dog really present problems for hyper aggro lists. Anything recursive. Glissa with the first strike death touch. Use a Ganjo on her. Have that much power, and Liliana comes down. We get two 2/2/2s. Alright, they -2, make a sack 1. There's Glissa. Twisted Fealty. Alright, so we attack. At the end, our Resolute Reinforcements. Pretty hefty removal. Block one of our 2/2 tokens. We're going to kill Liliana with the Glissa's ability. Alright, so 28, we're up. They play a Glissa and a Dread Knight. That Dread Knight is just our bane. There's just not much you can do. Upcoat Vanguard. Some kind of exile-based removal, maybe. Thought about it against Golgari. Ossification. Some such card like that. But so we end up losing against Golgari, and some of the weaknesses of the deck really start to show right here. But nonetheless, I always say I have a good time. Nonetheless, that's 2-1. How we did 2-1 in that first hour that night. And then we go on actually to play one more. Alright, so in this matchup, we are going to line up against Esper. Big test, big test. Alright, so we get to go first. Very good for this deck when it gets to go first. Upcoat Vanguard is the play there. I've gone with Intrepid Adversary in case of removal. Adeline comes down next. 2 in hand. Yeah, I go for the throw it back card. Wedding Announcement. Cavern Soul, so we have access to 4 mana. We're going to Intrepid Adversary with the boost. 3/5, 4/5 Adeline now. comes out with a 2/2 token. So we've established a pretty hefty board stay already, setting up for Knight Errant of Eos. Urtai comes down, deals Deathblow to Intrepid Adversary. We decide to go full on Virtue of Loyalty and just sit and get boosts. Ooh, they go for the Throat Avalon. Decide not to be aggressive. Plaza of Heroes comes down. Second Adeline. Very Mastermind for the opponent. We decide to Knight Errant. Grab Resolute and NT. From here, our opponent casts for Fiend. Scary, scary. Fiend is a powerhouse. If you let it sit too long in the field, it's just it becomes a problem. Alright. Adeline, NT. Knight Errant of Eos. Knight Errant and the 1/1 attack. 1/1 coming from Adeline. And we decide to just stack up with Resolute Reinforcements all the way down. Really gets help from Virtue of Loyalty, but then our opponent plays Virtue of Loyalty as well. Looking rough, looking rough. 16-15, we're ahead, and then we go down to 9, so it's 15 on our opponent. Resolute Reinforcements comes down, or sorry, Recruitment Officer comes down. Alpha Strike, just big attack. Doing the math, and Virtue of Loyalty, it just becomes too much for our opponent. Copperco Vanguard helps finish things off here. Alright, so we go into sideboarding. No changes at all. Which, looking back, we might should have taken out some things for a little bit more removal. Make things easier on ourselves, and that's what I would do next time. Alright, and then, okay, so Recruitment Officer's our play. Copperco Vanguard, 3 damage on the opponent. Their turn 3. Fiend comes out. Adeline comes down for us. Or not to attack. Urtai comes down to kill the Adeline. But of course they mess up because it has ward because of Copperco Vanguard. So a big oops play from our opponent. Unnamed Pakal. Adeline helps make things go even wider. They're already down to 9. Turn 4. Wedding announcement comes down for the opponent. And we just decide to Indane's Recruiter and Alpha Strike. Just go for it. See how they block. And boom, that's game. So you can see how this deck can just power through a lot of the other creature-based lists that you tend to see out there. So I highly recommend this list. Now let's wrap things up with some brief notes on what I would change about this list going forward and where I think its place is in the standard meta. So first, we may have to slot in more copies of Get Lost. Trade those for Destroy Evil in the case of the Esper matchup. And with a hyper aggro list such as this, the opponent doesn't have much time or mana to waste really with exploring on the map tokens, except in the case of Esper midrange, which does have enough low to ground options like Malcolm and the Deep Cavern Bat with evasion to make this doing this worthwhile. Second, I have to ask, do we need the 1 copy of Virtue of Loyalty? The verdict is still out on this card for me in this deck, and I'll need to either increase it to 2 and see if it performs as expected, or cut it all together in favor of perhaps some burn spells like Witchstalker Frenzy Main or Lightning Strike to help finish things off. I'm unsure, and I'll be testing this further. Finally, while the deck is super budget friendly for those on Arena who have been collecting in Standard for a while now, as many of the rares have actually been in standard for some time. The new cards may require some pack ripping, and especially so if you're just starting out. I do recommend building it if you can, if you already have the wild cards, and if you're starting out, gain some rank, especially in the lower bronze to gold ranks. Many opponents there won't see this deck coming, but even in the higher diamond to mythic play, as you saw, this deck forces the opponent to have perfect draws, much like mono red typically does to the opponent. So they share those characteristics. And now, while I would recommend this for play, would I recommend this for play at the upper ranks? Yes, I still would. I would say this deserves a tier 1 slot going forward, maybe tier 1.5 when there's a heavy control meta, as Sunfall is still this deck's Achilles heel. There's really no way to bounce back once the opponent hits you with that. But that's all I have for you today. I hope you do try this deck out, as it is really fun to overrun your opponents by turn 4 or 5. Be sure to like and subscribe down below, and leave a comment on what you think of this new format of deck gameplay video. Curve out for this deck feels great. If you want to try this deck out, check it out in the description. I have my Aether Hub link for it down there. So, until next time, let's go for maximum damage.